Okay, it is 7 o'clock and time to get started. I'm going to go a little bit slow right here, so a lot of people are dialing in. But welcome to the webinar, Transforming Photos with Plugin Filters. My name is Joanne Kairys. I'm the presenter for this evening. Some of you know me as an author and an illustrator, a featured pro instructor for Topaz Labs, as well as an instructor for my own Photoshop classes online. I'm joined tonight by Cheryl, Auditor. She's a wonderful photographer, president of the Monmouth Camera Club, and a member of Down the Shore meetup group here in New Jersey. Cheryl's going to help in a lot of ways, including fielding questions. So we encourage you to type your questions into the question box, and we'll be asking and answering questions periodically throughout the webinar. So I want to talk for a minute about why I like plugins. I don't like them. I really love them, and I'm a strong advocate for plugin filters. Because for me, they've become indispensable. I discovered plugins when I started illustrating children's books, and I didn't know much at all about Photoshop or plugins. But as I learned, I was able to create the highly stylized images that you see on the screen. I'm not here to plug my book. Just a second, let me get this out of the way. And I am plugging plugins, though, because I am a huge advocate of plugins. For me, they became a stepping stone to what eventually resulted in my being an award-winning, nationally recognized digital artist, and that was very exciting and still is. So for a second, I want to talk about plugin filters. First the plugin part, then the filter part. The plugin itself is an add-on. It's an application or program for photo editors like Photoshop or Lightroom or Aperture or others. The plugins are installed on your hard drive in the photo editor's plugin filters. So you would find them, for example, if you're using Photoshop, in a special plugin folder called plugins. And if you have questions about that, don't hesitate to ask. But that's the technical piece. What I want to focus on is the filter piece, because this is where things get really magical and fun. So what the filter does is create effects that are probably impossible, or certainly difficult to achieve with Photoshop alone. Even if you're an advanced user of Photoshop, you have tons of expertise and experience, you know how to hack Photoshop, and you know how to make subtle and difficult changes. Well, one of the things that the plugins do is allow you to make those kinds of changes very quickly. And I'm going to be showing you how. And the other thing that filters do, and this is the main point that I want to make here, is that they modify color and light. So each plugin filter has its own sort of very sophisticated algorithms that alter hue and color and tint and shade and tone. So in working seamlessly in this integrated way with the host program, let's say it's Photoshop, you can manipulate all of these in very subtle or dramatic ways. So if you want the end result to be just a subtle touch-up on the skin, or something like a very dramatic artistic landscape, a high-definition fashion photo, or graphic design, you can take you can take your photograph in almost any direction. So essentially, plugins are the tools that make the host program even more powerful, can save you a lot of time, and hugely expand your creativity. On the webinar tonight, I'm going to cover 4 very popular plugins: Topaz Labs, the Google Nik collection, OnOne, and Alien Skin. So why these 4? Because they're the ones that I used most frequently, and also the ones that I'm most comfortable demonstrating for you. That's not to say that there aren't others that I liked a lot. In fact, there really are a lot of different types of plugins for different types of purposes. And among these 4, I don't have a favorite. Some accomplish results that others can or can't, but they all do have some basic features in common, which I like. I encourage everyone to visit the website of the plugin filter companies. Most of them, as far as I know, have 15 to 30-day free trials, and this is a great way to experiment and get to see what you can do within your host program to become more expressive and creative with your own photographs. Please stay tuned, because at the end of the webinar, I'm going to announce, or Cheryl's going to announce, the winners of fabulous prizes. 3 plugin filters from Alien Skin, brand new releases as of July, and 1 product from Topaz Labs that will be chosen by the winner of that prize. So what you're looking at here is just a quick snapshot of plugin specs. The column on the left shows the name of the plugin with pricing information, and on the right, the host program that it works with. So for example, you can quickly see that the 4 plugins I'm going to be showing you tonight, they all work with Adobe Photoshop, but not all work with Corel PaintShop Pro. So I just wanted to give you those little facts as a starting point. And again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. The way I've structured the presentation is the next few minutes I'm going to show some examples of plug-in filter effects that I've used on a portrait photo, leave the bulk of the time to demonstrate live for you the tools and the techniques, and also leave some time in between here and there and at the end for questions. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go right into Photoshop. Now let's look at some examples. So this is my Photoshop program, and you can see that I'm working in, well, I guess you can't. This is the Photoshop CC version, not the 2014 release. Sometimes that crashes on me and I don't know why, and I didn't want to take the chance that that would happen tonight. But that's a good point for me to make here. In case we run into any technical glitches, I'm going to re-record this entire webinar, and you will also receive a recording of the live webinar. All right, so I'm going to look at some examples here. This is a lovely portrait, I think, that was taken by a professional photographer. It's my daughter, and no, it's really nicely focused. But if I click on the face, the magnifier lens, shows the irregularities in the skin that are very common in portraits and texture of skin. So if you're planning to enlarge a photograph such as this, the enlarging may bring out some of these subtleties. And so if you want to reduce them, there are some really quick ways to do that. So notice here on the forehead that I've smoothed out those irregularities. And I did this right in Photoshop using Adobe Camera Raw. It took me about 20 seconds just to smooth out those little rough spots. And with all of these filters, I want to make the point that they're very, very time-saving. So in this one, I was just looking at some ways, to make the photograph a little bit more interesting. And since people love black and white, I chose this black and white effects filter from Topaz Labs. I didn't do a lot of hunting for different versions of black and white. That's the first one I saw. I liked it and I clicked OK, and that was that. Now this one is an example from the OnOne Perfect Effects program. This is also black and white, but what's neat about this is that it leaves a hint of color in different areas of the photograph. So you can see it on the face, in the background, and I really like that effect. It's very expressive, so if you're doing work with let's say weddings or babies, something romantic, it's a very nice effect that clients really like. And this one is also very popular. The vintage, the antique look, this was produced by using the Nik collection, Silver Effects plugin. It's called Antique Plate. And all I did was find it, selected it, and clicked OK, and there it was. And this one is an example of, how you can apply texture artistically to a photograph using Alien Skin Snap Art program. And if you look in the magnifier, you can see an effect that's something like sort of crayon streaks across the canvas. It goes all the way. It covers all of the area of the canvas. And I want to say here that you can control the effect of any of these filters on any selected part or portion of a photograph that you want to change. And I'm going to be showing that live. So this last one is an example of Alien Skin's exposure program. It's called Polypen Blue. It's just there as a selection in one of their factory presets, so I thought it was interesting, and I chose that. But back to the original. And so that's a quick overview of some of the ways that you can apply the filters and shows how they work. Any questions so far?
Hi, Joe. There are some people are asking about how they can learn one-on-one to use the plugins. Do you teach one-on-one?
Oh, actually I do. As I mentioned earlier in the introduction, I do teach Photoshop classes online. I love teaching one-on-one. So if that's something you want more information about, please shoot me an email and we can discuss further. Okay, so let me transition from here, the overview, into specifics, because I want to show you the techniques and the details of how to achieve these types of effects. And then I'm also going to point out as I go some of the significant differences between the different plugin filters. So back into Photoshop. I want to stick with this one for just a minute. All right, so this was the original, and part of your workflow, if you don't already do this, please start, and that is to, on the highlighted layer, that's the background layer, duplicate it and work with that as your working active layer. So I said that I wanted to show you what's unique and different about each of the programs. So I'm going to go here, and you see where my pointer is. This is the OnOne software program that I'm going to open. And also remember that I said that the plugins work seamlessly because that's what they are. They're plugged into your host program on your hard drive. So all I have to do is click here on OnOne, and it happens to have among these features one that's called Perfect Portrait. So how perfect is that? And I'm going to double click on it. And notice over here, way on the left in my dock, it launched Perfect Photo Suite. So before you look at the photo in the middle, just take notice of how the user interface is set up. For example, on the left are the factory presets. These are provided by the plugin company. And on the right are the fine-tuned adjustments that allow you to highly customize the end result. In this case, I'm going to choose not elderly for sure, but freckle saver. And because the program is called Perfect Portrait, as soon as the photograph resides within the plugin, it's going to make some changes, as it already did. Down here at the bottom of the OnOne collection of programs, there's an option to preview. Not too much is going on yet, but take a look at this. If I double click inside the square, and I'm going to enlarge this so you can really see the effect. See, notice these transform handles? I think this is a really great thing about the OnOne program, specifically for working on eyes, lips, and mouth. Highly targeted and selective. Now you can do this in Photoshop and other programs and other plugins as well, but this is so easy to use. It's really simple, and all I have to do now is come over to the right. If I wanted to further smooth out the blemishes, do you see where I'm pointing on the right? Smooth them out, correct shadows. I could do that, but what I want to focus on is this box called Eyes and Mouth. I can whiten the eyes, but they're already pretty white, and I don't want to bring out too much more whiteness or detail, or it's going to look a little bit robotic to my eye. But I do want to whiten the teeth, so keep your eye on the teeth as I slide this all the way over to the right. There's a little, push in the white area, and I like that. It's subtle. And now this vibrance slider is going to bring out color in the lips as I slide it all the way to the right. So did you see the difference? Less vibrance, more vibrance. I'm not applying new color to the lips. It's borrowing color from the original photograph on another layer. And that's another way of pointing out how the host program and the plugin work seamlessly together. And I like that, so I'm going to select Apply, and that will bring us right back into Photoshop. That was before, and that's after. I really like that. Just so fast. Look how the eyes are just brighter, and the teeth are a little bit whiter, and there's some color on the lips. So very nice effect, and very, very fast and easy. So now I want to switch to something very, very different to use as an example. And that's this landscape photo. This was taken by Cheryl at the Stokes National Forest in New Jersey. And yes, there are very pretty places in New Jersey, and this is one of them. So I'm happy to show this photograph because it's very crisp, it's very, very good. And you might think, well, why would I want to change that? Well, you might not want to. But let's say you did. So I'm going to use the same initial step, which is to duplicate the background layer and just work on the copy of it. And the first thing I'm going to try to do is give it it's become very popular, that high definition HDR look. And in order to do that, I'm going to switch to the Nik collection, and I went up to my filter menu across the top menu bar, scrolled down to Nik collection, and then you can see all of the Nik collection displayed in this pop-out window. And here's HDR Effects. And again, it's a good example to demonstrate how the plugins are really plugged into Photoshop, and they are readily accessible when you need them. So I'm just going to click on HDR Effects, and this is going to take us into another window that won't be dissimilar from the one you just saw in OnOne. Let's do it this way. On the top left are the factory presets. They're all set up in this library of presets. So if I wanted to see all of them, I can reveal them in this window and scroll through and hunt for whatever option looks good to me. And there are some others, landscapes, real, and so forth. Just wanted to point that out. But the one I'm going to use is this one called Structurized. And I'm going to click on it. And it's going to apply an initial filter with an HDR look. Well, that's okay, but it doesn't really bring out the high resolution that I want. So take a look over here on the right side of the interface. So on this panel, there's actually a set of selections called HDR method. So if I want to accentuate detail, I just slide to the right. And this tells me, whoops, maybe you want it grungy, or maybe you want to stay with detailed. I kind of like that. And then I also have an option of increasing the drama. Now this is the only one of the 4 plugins I'm showing tonight that has a depth, detail, and drama set of options. So I kind of like that. Very grainy, a little less grainy, maybe too grainy. So let's leave it there. But here's what's really unique about the entire Nik collection, and that is that it utilizes control points to selectively target your adjustments. And so all you have to do is click on a control point, and just like that, add a control point, and it's not responding, but it will, I promise. Okay, so I'm going to place the control point over here in the water because let's say I want to see a little bit of blue pop into the photograph. So if I enlarge this, you can see it very closely. There we go. All right, so here's my control point, and I can start with the controls by identifying within the radius of that circle the area that I want to be adjusted. And those adjustments include exposure, contrast, saturation, structure, blacks, whites, temperature, tint, and the strength of the method applied. All I really want to do is bring out the blue in the water. So the default is also always at 0%. But if I start sliding towards the left, which generally means cool, I'm going to start seeing that blue pop out. And then I might decide to expand the effect radius. All right, that's not bad, but what about this area over here? Well, easy enough. You can, in the Nik collection, duplicate control points. So that's over here on the right side of the panel. And here is the additional control point. And that's a bit blue, I think. So I don't want to make this look so unrealistic that it doesn't seem authentic. So I'm just going to take the slider and bring it back towards the center and leave a hint of blue. That's what I would do. But for the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to leave it pretty blue so you can really see that pop. And that's all I'm going to do on this one. I can compare the original. Let me bring it back down. You have options within each of the filters to zoom out or in and fit into the screen. Another thing that I want to point out about the Nik collection is that you can readily see all of the points along the way. This is your history and what you did first, last, and everything in between. And I really like that. You can also save your settings, and they're just some really wonderful features. So this is a great program. I just love it. Now I'm ready to say, all right, I'm happy with it, and I'm going to click OK. And this will bring us directly back into Photoshop. It's processing. And there it is. Now, I didn't name it, so again, in the workflow, I'm going to name it myself. This is HDR, and it was Nik. So now I know I exactly what I did to that layer. And there you go. Now, another thing that I want to do is show you, this time, duplicating this layer, and I'm going to bring it into Topaz Labs and show what I think is a very, very unique feature of Topaz, and that's the Restyle program. It's a relatively new set of options for Topaz. Thousands of presets that you'll see in just a second of ways that you can modify the color and tone of an image. And again, very similar setup in terms of the user interface. Collections or presets all on the left, and you can scroll through those and take a look at all of these simply by scrolling up and down, or you can take a quick look at the thumbnails enlarged. And Topaz does a really nice job of giving you access to the different thumbnails. Now, I said there are 1,000, and there truly are, and someone actually named these, and I find the names a lot of fun. But let's say I really want to bring out different types of tones in the photograph. So I'm going to choose something just for dramatic effect. I love these names. Azure Mist. How about Marvelous Murk? I don't think so. Let's try Brightening Blue. I haven't used that before, but let's see what it does. All right, so it has a cooling effect, and you can see that easily because over here on the right, there are the 5 so-called primary colors associated with this preset. And if I wanted to change how any one of them interacts with the other, I can use sliders to tone down a particular color. For example, this primary color. All right, so if I slide it to the right, it's going to be very dramatic here in the upper right, and if I slide it to the left, it desaturates that area. I'm going to leave it there because it retains some of the green in the trees. I don't want to lose that. This fifth color isn't going to change too much. Let's see what this blue one does. That really brings out the blue in the water, and I don't like that so much because it makes the water look unrealistic. So there are other things that you can do within this program, but let's say that it's pretty good. It shows, just what's possible within this program. And it's a starting point. If you want to take it in a different direction, you can choose Reset, and it will take you back to the original. Here's a way to compare. This is the processed image, and here's the original. Quite a bit different to the eye. I'm going to click OK, and Topaz is going to take us back into Photoshop as it processes this image, and there it is. It's not named, so I'm going to rename it. That's Topaz Restyle. One more for the landscape. I'm going to bring it into Alien Skin's Exposure 6. Here's Alien Skin in the filter menu. Here's the pop-out window. Exposure 6 is the newest release of this program. Don't look. And again, the user interface is very much the same as the others. Presets on the left and adjustments on the right. So with this one, a lot of people ask, all right, I want to see light rays. That would make it look really interesting and dramatic. So with Exposure 6, there is a very quick way to add something like light effects, because it's right here, available in the adjustments panel, and you can choose from a variety of light effects. In this case, I want to choose sun flare because I know that there's a light rays option, and there it is. And then I can zoom it, I can lower the opacity, and I can do some other things. I can change the position, which doesn't really make sense. And then that switches to another type of sun flare effect. But that's something that I really like. So if you look at before, and here's the after. Before and after. So again, all of the programs offer that before and after feature. And if you want to look at before and after that way, you can split it horizontally. So I'm going to click Apply, and notice that it's taking us right back into Photoshop, and it named the layer. It's Exposure 6, Factory Default Modified. So you can rename that if you prefer, so you know exactly what you did. So I'm going to stop there. That's the first set of examples that I wanted to show, and ask if there are any questions at this point.
Hi, Joe. I'm going to read through a few of the questions that our audience is asking. I is asking, and this was relating to the portrait, when you were working on the portraits, how did you display the photos?
How did I display the photos? Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to answer this correctly, but if you look at the bottom of my screen, you can see the photos across the bottom. Now, this is a function of Bridge in Photoshop. It's called Mini Bridge, and it's available, and it's showing because up here in the window, I have chosen under extensions, scroll over to the right, and you see that Mini Bridge is checked. So that automatically brings up a folder that I have sitting in Bridge that looks just like this. And then when I wanted to show it in that scrolled effect, I can simply click Review Mode and it will do exactly as you saw, or it will play a slideshow. But in Review Mode, it shows the name of the filter that you applied, or however you named it, it's going to show. And I think that's important. And you can also, go ahead.
Oh, well, Bill was asking a question relating to the same program. Can you make the photo even more vibrant? And I believe he was referring to maybe the selection that you made on the eyes and the teeth. And
can you make it more vibrant? Yes. I could demonstrate that. You know, there are a lot of ways post-processing with the filters that you can go into your host program and target the vibrancy on any part of the photograph. If we have time, I'll show you that, or maybe I can do that as we go through the next set of photos, because that's a great question. Good question so far, guys.
Yeah, Deborah had a great question also. She wanted to know if you can use multiple plugins at the same time, or do you need to close out of one program before you can open another?
Yeah, another great question. What you can do is launch a couple of these programs independently, but they still need to work with Photoshop. And what I mean by that is that instead of going up to the filter and selecting the programs, the plugins from here, you can go into your applications folder. Remember I said that the plugins are housed in the plugin folder of your host program. And you can launch them from there, which means that if I had, let's say, the OnOne program launched independently, I could batch a lot of photographs at the same time and apply the same effects at the same time and do a lot of work within the OnOne program. Because what I did here, what I showed you, was that each of these filters is available, but you have to go into each one, come back to Photoshop, go back into the program. But if you launch the program independently, then it will show up over here on the left, and then you can work within that program. Can you work simultaneously with different plugins? I don't think so. I think I've tried that several times, but you really can't. You have to stay within one program or another. But you can exit the program without leaving the program, if that makes sense. You can exit from what you're doing at that moment, go back into Photoshop, and then go back into the plugin filter. And if I have time at the end, I'll launch a program separately so you can see just what I'm talking about. So that's a partial answer. I'd have to show you.
One more question, Joe, and then we can go on to the next session, and then after that we'll answer some more questions.
Sure.
Jill was asking, how do you choose which plugin you want to use? Is it based on the photo, and what you're looking to achieve with the image?
Well, that answer that does answer the question in a good way. It depends on the photo. If you're working with a portrait, um, you might want to go into OnOne's Perfect Portrait program. And there's another plugin that is really wonderful that a lot of fashion photographers use called Imaginomic. I didn't show it tonight because I'm just becoming familiar with it, but it specifically targets portraits. So it all depends. That's the best answer I can give, I think. If you're working with a landscape and you want to really make it pop or make it vintage look, you just play with the filters and get to know what kinds of features they offer and what you can accomplish easily in a few steps with each one. So essentially what I'm doing is giving you kind of a taste of what each one does, but that's just the tip of the iceberg because there's so much. If you don't know what direction you want to take your photograph in, just start playing. Sometimes for me, when I'm doing illustrations, I'll work on an illustration for a week. I'll use different plugins, I'll do a whole lot of different things, and then I'll look at the result and I'll say, don't like it, so I'll start all over again. So subjective. But that's why these plugins are great for experimenting. See what you can do with your creativity and develop your unique style of transforming a photograph.
And I have a question for the audience. If you can start typing your answers in the question box as Joanne is going on to the next section, and that is, how many of you use plugins? And if you do use plugins, which ones do you use? Which are your favorites? So as we go into the next section, if you can put your answers in that answer box, that would be great.
All right, with that, then I'm moving forward to show you a different set of examples, but this time with this beautiful flower, another photograph that Cheryl took. And the first thing I want to do with it is take it into Alien Skin's Snap Art program. And this is where you'll find a lot of very artistic effects. Don't look, please. All right, so I'm going to, it will always default to the last set of adjustments that you applied. And sometimes that's a little bit, I don't know, disconcerting. But once you get familiar with the plugins, you know how to bypass that. All right, so here in Snap Art, very similar. It's presets on the left and an effects tour. So you can very quickly see that there are a set of options including color pencil, oil paint, watercolor, and so forth. And if you want to look at any of those specifically, then you just click on that name and it'll bring up thumbnails of the presets. And I like Impasto because it's true to its name. It has a very strong painterly effect with thick paintbrushes applied. But I'm going to use dry brush. So I really like this one. I have it starred as a favorite. You notice up at the top you can place your favorites in folders so they're readily available and you can use them the next time you go into the program. Okay, so dry brush. I'm just going to click on it and notice how this immediately changed. This was before, this is after. And what it did was apply sort of a starting point with the brush size here, and I'm going to accentuate the brush size and bring it up. Photorealism is a slider that allows you to retain a realistic look, but because I like the paint effect. So imagine that you are a painter and you're working with an actual canvas. You're applying these brush strokes to that canvas, and you can really do some wonderful things. Here's the color variation slider, and notice how that affects the entire photograph. You even have an option to use a different type of brush. Let's see what the soft brush does. It makes it a little bit more subtle, in which case I'm going to push up the paint thickness level, but I don't know. It's so addicting. And then you can randomly have the program choose for you an effect. So I'm kind of liking that. However, I don't like all of this so-called paint applied to the flower. And there's a way to deal with that. Again, it has to do with targeting a particular area in a photograph. So you can very easily do that here. I'm going to mask the effect of the paint on the flower. So I'm going to click New Area. And I'm going to, here my brush adjustments, like that. And then I'm going to apply this mask across the areas of the flower that I think are too, over dramatized with the paint. And immediately tones down the effect of the paint. But then I can additionally move sliders to the left. It's going to look pretty funky for a minute. And let's see what happens. So now you see that the paint effect has been essentially removed from this part of the flower. And the next thing that I want to do, and by the way, you can erase, you can bring that back if you like. With the mask tool, you can add or erase. I want to bump up the saturation so the colors really pop, like that. Maybe make it a little bit brighter. And it's important to note that when you use these sliders and all of the plugins, they tend to act independently of each other. So if I'm changing saturation, because I've masked this area, it's not going to affect the saturation of that part of the flower. And I really like that feature as well. So, whoops, that changes the temperature. Remember, it's all about color and light. So in terms of vibrance, sometimes the plugins don't give you a specific option to change vibrance, but vibrance may be residing in brightness or contrast or saturation or a combination. For example, the saturation, it tells you it affects the vividness of the color. So you might not see an option to check vibrance or to change vibrance, but all of the programs do a really nice job of giving you descriptive information about what it is that you are doing. And the other thing that I like about SnapArt, but it's not unique to SnapArt. If you wanted to add a vignette, let's say I wanted to do something white, and then I can apply that to the photograph, change the size, change the softness around the edges. I think change the amount. Doesn't show up very much. I really want to dramatize this so you can see the effects. All right, come out wherever you are. There we go. That might be a little bit too much. And then the other thing that I would do is choose a texture for the canvas. Now, the preset that's chosen is hot press paper, but look at all of these options. Let's choose a pastel paper because I think that might complement the photograph nicely. And so I'm going to bump up the thickness and zoom it so you can easily see the effect. That might be too much, but again, this is for demonstration purposes. If it's too subtle, you won't be able to see the effect that it's having. So let's go to the before and the after. I think that's pretty dramatic, maybe a little bit too grainy, so come in and continue to make adjustments. But for now, I'm going to click apply. Now, again, it's taking us back into Photoshop and being mindful of the time. I'm going to quickly run through a couple more examples very fast and not linger on either one of them, but I want to show you. So that's a great effect. Let's take this background copy and I'm going to bring this now back into the Nik collection, but this time I'm going to choose, let's say, analog effects. This is a new update from Google Nik. I really like it, and I can show you really quickly. Here are the presets on the upper left, all of the tools that you can choose from, and combinations of tools. So I'm going to click on Vintage Camera, and on the left, as with all the other programs that I've shown you, I'm going to click on a particular thumbnail. This is called Vintage Camera 3 and immediately applies that effect, and you can see that there are layers of effects. So if I turn off light leaks, it removes the light that was applied. If I turn off the vignette, it changes that, but I can go into any of these and change them to my liking. And let's say I wanted to put a more dramatic frame on it. Let's just do that quickly. Okay, I like it. Click OK. And back into Photoshop. And the next thing I'll show you again quickly is the Topaz Detail program, because it does a great job of bringing out fine details in a photograph such as this. So I'm going to choose Topaz Labs. This is a very popular program. A lot of people use this to bring out detail in fine areas of a photograph, and you can do that very selectively with this. So as soon as it opens, I'm going to enlarge it. Now you have options to change the percentage of enlargement. I did it with my keyboard, and I'm just quickly going to choose from this stylized detail collection. Here are my options, and I want overall detail strong, because I want to see these fine hairs on the edge of the petal really pop out. And let's see, I already did. So you see the before and the after, and then I can fine-tune that by boosting small details, coming over here and just making sure that these little hairs are going to have a presence versus being hidden. And the other thing that I want to do is work with the tone of this area, because I want to see more of that red pop out. So just slide over to the right, and there we go. But what I'm not so happy with is the graininess on this part of the flower. So I'm choosing the effect mask, and I'm going to choose a brush. I can make it about this size. I'm going to choose that strength, hardness, leave it at that. Now I'm going to use the brush on this area of the flower, and notice what happens to the mask as I do that. So I'm essentially erasing or masking out that graininess. And you may or may not like that. I'm just doing this for effect. Something like that. If you don't like that, you can reset it. But notice how the mask was applied to specific areas. So it's like punching a hole through a piece of paper and letting the light shine on that area that you've targeted. Now, lots of other things that you can do in this program, but I'm going to click Apply and bring it back into Photoshop. And most likely will not name the layer, so I'm going to be ready to do that and move on to the very last example. Unless there are questions.
Well, Joe, actually, we're running really kind of tight. We're almost at the 8 o'clock hour, although we can stay longer, and if there are people who would like to stay a little bit longer, we can extend the webinar, but I think maybe one more question, and then for those questions we were not able to answer, we will be emailing you the answers to those questions. So sorry for the time just seems to like run away when you're doing this. It's just so much fun. You lose track of time. But we will be answering those questions, and we still want to get to giving away the prizes. But one of the questions is how can people access how can you access these filters? So I'm just going to give that information to everyone here.
And as you're doing that, I'm going to keep working. So this is the last one that I wanted to demo, so we can talk over it and just watch if you'd like. This is the OnOne program.
Okay, so I've sent the information to everyone. Hope you're able to see that. If not, we'll include it in the email that goes out. And there will also be an email of the recording for this session that we'll send to everyone. And if you have additional questions, you have Joanne's email address, so you can ask her any additional questions as well. But hold on, because we didn't give the prizes away yet. So actually, I can do that while Joanne's just flipping through these this next filter. So I'll kind of go through this a little quickly. Congratulations to Rebecca for winning the Alien Skin Exposure 6. And we'll be sending out emails with the links to how you can access these prizes. Jeff will be receiving the Snap Art 4, and Deb will be getting the Blow Up 3. Alan, we're happy to give you the Topaz filter of your choice. So, like I said, we'll be sending out those emails with the information of how everyone can access those great gifts. Back to you, Joanne.
Okay, any last minute questions? I will stay on a little bit longer. What I'm doing now is applying a texture to the flower layer. just because I love textures. I love to create textures, and I love the effects that you can achieve with textures. Just another way of creating drama and interest, post-process, just lots of fun. So I will officially say goodbye to everyone who needs to leave, but for those of you who'd like to stay, I'm going to just continue for another few minutes, and I'll answer questions if there are any. So for those of you who need to leave, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you have fun with plugins, experiment, try them out, and let me know if you have questions. And for those of you who are staying, it's not too late to ask your specific questions.
So there's a place to raise your hand in the box. If you still have additional questions, I know we didn't get to all of them. See if that works. If you raise your hand, we'll try to answer your specific question. And if it doesn't work, we'll answer them in a private email. Okay, so Ruby has a question. Do you want to type it in, Ruby? Type it in the box, and we'll see if we can pull up your question.
What you're seeing
so
on my...
Ruby's asking,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. If you can explain how to open OnOne independently and edit the picture and then return to Photoshop.
Actually, what I just did was I opened OnOne independently. And I did that by clicking on the icon that's in the dock on the left. You see it over here. So I right-clicked, and it had an option to open. So I opened it, and this was what I got. So now I'm within the OnOne program, and let's say we want to work with this. It provides a lot of information about the photograph itself, and I like that. But that's the first thing to notice. And if I want to open this, what I can do, because it gives me a choice right inside the program itself, edit in perfect portrait, edit in black and white. Let's do perfect layers. Click OK to make a copy. Now what's different about this, using it independently, although it's still integrated with Photoshop, is that you can move from option to option. So say I want to go to the Enhance set of options, the Portrait. So I just do that by clicking on each option versus going in and out of the program like I was doing most of the time tonight. And so it's very cool. And so that's how that works. Very simple. And along with the OnOne program are these are thumbnails of free photographs that they provide that you can work with, and it's nice. So here I am in perfect layers, and I don't know, let's choose black and white. You see, I don't have to leave the program at all. Here's the hint of color option that I was showing you earlier. Vivid Dream, one click, and there it is.
Joe?
Yeah.
There's actually quite a few people are staying after school and with their hands raised
yes.
anxiously. So, well, one of the things Jeff, rather, I'm sorry, is asking if it's Mac only. I think he's referring to the way you're accessing the specific filter.
I don't believe
And
so. I think they work very much the same way on a
okay,
PC.
okay. So then Haya, I don't know. That don't understand really quite the question. So, hi, if you can type your question again. Michael also has a question, but I'm not sure what it is. So Hi is asking, when I open Nik analog, I don't see the options that you showed. Could it be the version,
You
maybe?
should check to see if you have the latest version, because sometimes the programs update automatically in the background and you don't know it, but sometimes you really have to go in and check to see if they have updated. Uh, in fact, that raises another question, because sometimes the updates are available easily on the website of the company, but you have to pay for the upgrade. That's true for OnOne and I believe Alien Skin, but not Topaz. And I'm not 100% certain about Google Nik.
Okay, Joanne, Michael's question is, are we using RAW only?
No, no, absolutely not. Actually, oh, well, the photographs that I've displayed, this portrait, for example, was not taken in RAW. You don't have to use RAW by any means. Your photos, Cheryl, were they done in RAW?
Well, I do shoot in RAW,
Mm-hmm.
and then I will, in the end process, convert them to JPEG
Mm-hmm.
when I'm finished. But I always save the RAW version. I always save the Photoshop version, so I can always go back and change my mind if I want
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Well, you don't have your native original photograph does not have to be in RAW. It can be a JPEG,
Sure.
and really doesn't matter. Uh, the plugin is going to treat it the same way and apply the filter in the same way.
Okay, Carmelina has a question, but I'm not sure what it is because I don't think she typed it in there yet. So, Carmelina, if you're still here, if you want to type your question, we will try to answer it for you. And John as well.
So I'm just playing with these presets. It's called Over a Barrel, and there's some that whoever names these must have a lot of fun. Bogart Warm and Ingrid Cool. So there you go. Lots of imagination going on here. I'm just clicking on the different presets to show you what's available. Well, that's pretty dramatic. Um, and pretty grainy. Large dynamic range. That's pretty. You can adjust the grain, the glow, the tone, put a vignette on here. Let's turn it on. The style of the vignette, let's soft, how bright it is. Any other burning questions?
I think we're good.
Yes?
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, well then, this looks like it's a good point to say thank you again. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you'll go and play and enjoy the plugins. And let me know any comments that would be helpful, because I hope to do this sort of thing again.